Right now in Japan, doctors are treating knee pain with something you already own. No surgery, no injections, no $40 cream that smells like a locker room. Just 2 movements, done for about 90 seconds a day. Knee osteoarthritis affects an estimated 25 million people in Japan alone, and the Japanese Orthopedic Association built a national health campaign around retraining the muscle that actually holds the joint together. By the end of this video, you'll know what that muscle is, how to train it, and why your knee has been quietly losing this fight for years. Picture a 68-year-old man in Osaka. He used to walk 2 miles to the train station every morning without thinking about it. Then one winter, his knee started catching on the stairs. A small hitch at first, then a real ache by the 3rd flight. His doctor didn't order an MRI first. She handed him a laminated card with 2 drawings on it and told him to come back in 8 weeks. That laminated card is the Loco check, and it's the same starting point millions of people in Japan get instead of a prescription pad. Here's what almost nobody tells you about knee pain. Most of the time, it isn't really about the knee. Your knee joint is basically a hinge sitting between 2 bones, cushioned by cartilage and stabilized by the muscles around it. When people say bone on bone, what they usually mean is that the cartilage cushion has thinned, but cartilage doesn't thin randomly. It thins fastest in joints that are unstable, and the number one reason a knee becomes unstable is a weak quadriceps, the big muscle on the front of your thigh. Think about it like a table with a wobbly leg. You can replace the tabletop all you want, sand it, polish it, coat it in resin. The wobble is still coming from the leg. Your cartilage is the tabletop, your quadricep is the leg, and for decades, Western medicine spent most of its attention on the tabletop. Injections into the joint, painkillers, eventually a full replacement, while paying almost no attention to the leg holding it up. Japan approached it differently, and the reason has a name. In 2007, the Japanese Orthopedic Association coined a term, locomotive syndrome, sometimes shortened in Japan to locomo, and it describes a slow decline in the muscles, joints, and bones that let you walk, squat, and stand. And it was created specifically because researchers noticed something alarming. People weren't just showing up with painful knees. They were showing up with knees that had been quietly deteriorating for 10 or 15 years before the pain ever started. By the time it hurt, the muscle support was already mostly gone. So the country built a screening tool, a simple self-check anyone could do at home, and paired it with a training protocol doctors could prescribe before a single surgery was ever discussed. That protocol has 2 exercises in it, just 2. And that's the part that surprises people because it sounds too simple to matter. The Loco check itself is worth understanding because it explains why the 2 exercises were chosen in the first place. One part of the test asks you to stand up from a chair using only one leg, hands resting in your lap. Another part asks how far you can step in a single stride from a standing start. Neither one measures how your knee feels. Both measure whether the muscle around your knee can still do its job under your own body weight. Fail either tests, and the prescription is these 2 movements built to fix precisely what the test just exposed. The first is the squat. Not a gym squat with a barbell across your shoulders. A slow, controlled feet shoulder width, apart squat going down only as far as feels stable, then standing back up. 5 to 6 repetitions done in a set. The point isn't depth, the point is control on the way down because your quadriceps does more work slowing your body down than it does pushing it back up. And that's exactly the kind of low your knee has stopped getting if you spend most of your day sitting. The second is the one leg stand. You hold onto a chair or a counter for balance, lift one foot slightly off the floor, and just stand there for about a minute. Then switch sides. That's it. It looks almost too easy to be medicine. But standing on one leg forces your hip and thigh muscles to fire constantly just to keep you upright, and that constant low-level firing is exactly the kind of muscle activation your knee has been missing since the day you traded manual labor and long walks for a desk chair and a car seat. There's a mechanical reason the squat and the one-leg stand matter beyond just muscle size. Your cartilage has no direct blood supply. It gets its nutrition from synovial fluid, the lubricant inside the joint capsule, and that fluid only circulates properly when the joint is loaded and unloaded rhythmically, the way it is when you bend and straighten your knee under some resistance. Sit still all day, and that fluid barely moves, so the cartilage is essentially starving even before it starts wearing down. A controlled squat isn't just working the thigh muscle. It's pumping the one fluid your cartilage depends on to survive. Here's the detail that made researchers take this seriously. A 2014 randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science put people with diagnosed knee osteoarthritis through 8 weeks of isometric quadriceps training, movements built on the same principle as these two exercises, holding the muscle under tension without necessarily bending the joint through a full painful range. The group doing the training reported significantly less pain and noticeably better function than the group that didn't. 8 weeks, not 8 years, not a surgery recovery timeline. 8 weeks of a muscle finally being asked to do its job again. But here's the part that actually explains why this works when so many other fixes don't. Painkillers mute the alarm. Injections lubricate the hinge for a while. Surgery replaces the hardware. None of those 3 things touch the muscle that was supposed to be protecting the joint in the first place. You can inject a knee every 3 months for the rest of your life, and the quadricep around it will still be exactly as weak as it was the day you started, because the injection never asked it to do anything. The exercise is the only intervention on that whole list that actually rebuilds the support structure instead of just managing the symptoms sitting on top of it. That's also why so many people try stretching or mobility work for months and see almost nothing change. The stretching lengthens tissue, doesn't load it. A muscle that's flexible but weak still can't stabilize a joint under real body weight, which is why the Loco check doesn't test how far you can bend. It tests whether you can stand up from a low chair using one leg and whether you can hold your balance on one foot for 20 seconds. Those are strength tests wearing a flexibility costume, and plenty of people fail them without ever realizing their knee pain was a strength problem the whole time. There's a second reason gyms and generic workout plans tend to fail people with knee pain, and it comes down to low management, not effort. A lot of people in pain either avoid the joint completely, which starves the muscle, or they overcorrect and throw themselves into lunges and stair machines that spike the joint's own inflammation before the muscle has caught up. The squat and the one-leg stand sit in a narrow, deliberate middle zone, enough load to signal the quadricep to rebuild, not enough impact to aggravate the joint surface while that rebuilding happens. That narrow zone is the entire reason this protocol was designed around exactly these 2 movements instead of a general leg day. There's a walking piece to this too, and it's almost as counterintuitive as the 2 exercises. A lot of people with knee pain start avoiding walking, which feels logical in the moment but tends to make things worse over months, because walking is one of the few movements that keeps the quadricep and the joint's own fluid moving without heavy impact. The advice coming out of Japan's locomotive syndrome research isn't push through the pain. It's keep moving inside a pain-free ring and rebuild strength around the joint at the same time. Rest the joint entirely and the muscle around it atrophies even faster, which is the opposite of what you actually need. So here's how this fits together into something you can actually use tonight. Do the squats, 5 to 6 slow controlled reps once or twice a day. Do the one leg stand, about a minute per side, ideally near a wall or a sturdy chair for safety, especially at first. Keep walking daily, even short distances, staying inside whatever range doesn't spike your pain, and give it real time. The 8-week study wasn't a fluke number. Muscle tissue adapts on a schedule measured in weeks, not days. So the people who see the biggest change are the ones still doing this in week 6 when it feels like nothing is happening yet. A few details make a real difference in how fast this works. Keep your foot flat during the squat, not rocked onto your toes, because that keeps the load on the thigh instead of shifting it onto the joint itself. During the one leg stand, resist the urge to lock your standing knee. A slight, soft bend keep the muscle actively working instead of letting your skeleton do the holding for you. And if a full minute is too much at first, 30 seconds per side is a completely legitimate starting point. The research behind this protocol measures weeks of consistency, not how hard any single session felt. If you've got a more serious diagnosis, a torn meniscus, advanced bone-on-bone arthritis, or a doctor who's already recommended surgery, none of these replaces that conversation. Talk to your doctor before starting anything new, especially if you have a recent injury or a heart or balance condition that makes standing on one leg risky. This protocol was built as a first-line, preventive, and early-stage approach, which is exactly how Japan uses it, catching the muscle weakness years before it becomes a knee replacement. What's strange is how much this quietly says about the rest of your body too. Cortisol keeps your belly fat stubborn while your muscles waste away underneath it, and less muscle around a joint means less protection right when the joint needs it most. Blood sugar swings weaken the same connective tissue holding your joints together, which is part of why knee osteoarthritis shows up so often alongside metabolic problems that seem completely unrelated at first glance. Poor sleep slows the exact repair process your knee needs overnight to rebuild from the day's wear, so 2 nights of bad sleep can quietly undo a week of good training. Even blood pressure and circulation play a role because the muscle pump in your legs is doing real work, moving blood back up toward your heart every time you walk. None of those are separate problems from your knee pain. They're the same underlying story. A body that stopped being asked to maintain itself, told from a different angle at each time. This is also why the locomotive syndrome framework became bigger than just knees in Japan. Doctors started noticing the same pattern in people with early blood pressure issues, in people carrying stubborn weight around the middle, even in people describing brain fog and low energy that never had an obvious cause. The muscle you rebuild in your thighs doesn't just hold your knee together. It's one of the largest glucose sinks in your entire body, meaning a stronger quadriceps helps regulate blood sugar the same way it helps regulate a joint. Fix the muscle. And you're not just treating one symptom. You're addressing the piece of physical infrastructure that half a dozen seemingly unrelated health complaints were quietly resting on. So maybe the real question isn't whether 2 simple exercises can fix a knee that's hurt for years. It's why it took a national health crisis in Japan to remind an entire country that the muscle was the medicine all along. If your knee has been asking for help, the 2 minutes you'll spend doing this today might be the first time in years it actually got what it needed instead of something that just quieted the alarm. If this helped, the next video breaks down the walking habit itself, the exact daily distance and pace researchers have tied to slower joint decline, and why so many walkers are doing it wrong without realizing it.